to Bob Briggs is show up late. I don't know about Tori and Sam, but I'd like to kind of give him a little time to get here. So we're going to skip number 2 right now, and I'll open it up for public comments. Brian?
Hi there. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm representing the Downtown Association before. We're a vigorous organization and we've got a lot of items to far. Just want to let you know that we've got at least 11 events planned for downtown this summer and I don't know about all of them. It's at least what we've got going on. And that does not include the many movies we have discussed. The movies, not just one event. The other thing I'd like to say is I'm really pleased. We're pleased to see that the city's closing on Bank of America building. I think maybe Thursday or very soon. That's a signature project for downtown. We're really going to open up those blocks and make Dallas one of the downtown Dallas more than just 2 blocks to kind of bring it down that direction. The Association is forming or has formed an ad hoc group to help with that, and we're available to give you advice or answer questions about that and give us our input to make your job just a little bit easy. You guys are the primary consultants, I believe, on that. We'll proceed that as citizens. We're anxious about it. Great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a consent agenda for Trevor's edification. The consent agenda consists of the minutes to the meeting for the last meeting and for the budget report. And if a member wants to pull one of those out of the I think all they do is request Ben. They just request to have it removed from the consent agenda so that we discuss it and move to accept that one item. Is that how that works? Or we have to make a motion? Okay, perfect. So if you wish to have one of the items on the consent agenda removed to do a discussion on it or make changes to it, you have to request that it be removed and the chair will accept that request and we will discuss it, make it appropriate, and then vote to accept that as a separate item. Okay. Otherwise, what we do is we accept a motion to accept the consent agenda, and then we vote to accept the decline. So right now, hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to look at the minutes of the last meeting and look at the budget information. And if anybody has a request to remove any of these items, do so now.
Move approval.
So
approval.
I do just want to make the committee aware, we had one correction to the minutes, lines 19 and 20. Previously, those stated Mr. Dalton recommended that the 100 to 200 block of Washington Street be considered for streetscape work. That line has been corrected to call out that Mr. Dalton is recommending that the 2004 urban renewal plan be modified to incorporate the 100 to 200 blocks of Washington Street.
Made those changes already?
I have with your approval.
Okay.
Approval with those changes.
Okay, very good. And a second?
A second.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda with the modifications? Indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, now we're going to go back to item number 2. I would like to introduce Trevor Peterson, new member to the advisory committee. Trevor, you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself? And
yeah, my name is Trevor Peterson. Moved with my husband from Salt Lake City just over a year ago to Dallas, but I'm not new to the area. I actually graduated from West Salem and lived here for a while. Came to Dallas to drive in often. I'm excited to be part of it. I have natural interest and intrigue in infrastructure, development, architecture, and history. So I'm excited to be working with the city and helping to make Dallas better.
Very good. Now, I'd like to do is have each of the members tell about themselves. I'll start. My name is Richard. I'm a current chair. I have been a member of this committee since 2006, I believe. Does that sound right, Bob? I keep
Something
in
like
after
that.
Susie. Is that about right? Or when did this committee start? 2004?
Well, my time was after it started, but I was on the formation committee when we were looking into doing the urban renewal district, so.
You remember when this committee?
Probably, it sounds about right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my wife was on the committee and then she got too many irons in the fire, but she had to drop one of the committees. And so she volunteered me. So, and I am not a business owner. I am not associated with much of anything in Dallas as far as business wise, although I do run a business here in Dallas. We're very prosperous and do it very well. And I hope to stay with it for a number of years, but and I'll start with Ken. I don't know if he knows you very well or not, but I'll let you just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Ken Woods. I've been a member of Dallas since 1950 when we moved back from Seattle. Family did. So I grew up here, went to school here and moved away for 10 years, came back, and here I am. I've been on the city council for 40 years. Then this last year I've been elected mayor. So.
Right.
Oh, I'm Marlene Cox. I own several businesses and buildings downtown. And kind of like the Woods and the Daltons, we've been it for generations. So I'm very committed to the downtown and have been for a very long time and work hard to see it be preserved and to progress.
Corey Banford, neighbor. Volunteered on the budget committee for, I don't know, probably 4 years. I've been on URDAC for 3. I'm on planning commission as well. Background in urban development, economic development. Been a resident in Salem or in Dallas, Salem. I work in Salem. A resident of Dallas for 7 years, moved from Salem to Dallas. Yeah, happy to be here.
And Tori is our co-chair.
Bob Ricks is lifelong resident of Dallas, we're born and raised. Only one in my family that is. My parents were newcomers until the day they died. Moved here in '59, bought the jewelry store that was existing then, and I bought it from them in the '90s, or actually I bought out my brothers from them in the '90s. And I've been doing this for about 40 years, getting close to 40 years now. And running the jewelry store, watchmaker, jeweler, and guy that sweeps the floors. And I was on the formation committee of the urban renewal district. They wanted a business owner that had time to come to lunch meetings, and then about 2010 or so, I was asked to be on the advisory board. Been doing it ever since.
I did neglect to say that I was, my wife is from Dallas. She's the historian. And so I lived in Dallas from 71 through 74. And then went from here to Eugene to Portland and then back in 2003 and been here since. So I know this area not well, but I know it through my wife. And my brother-in-law are classmates of Mr. Ken Wood, so. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and let's move on to item number 4. Or pardon me, number 5. Let me get my glasses on so I can make sure I can see what I'm doing here. Yeah, staff reports, and I'm very anxious for Charlie to tell us what's going on.
Good evening, everyone. Good to see you, and it's always fascinating to revel in the history how committed you all are to this community.
We all should be committed.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Well, especially Marlene, don't take cigarettes from Marlene because they're all poison.
Well,
I'll make it only-
give us, to give us a tie. Charlie worked down in Grants Pass for 3 years. Were you born there?
Yeah. I was there. The city for 10 years.
I was born in Grants Pass too.
I like that area.
And not very often they go run into a
Yeah.
Grants Pass person who was actually born there.
Small world.
Okay.
I'm the second
Yeah.
generation.
So
Nice.
I went to Lincoln and North and the high school, so,
Yeah.
so.
My father was in North.
Two cavemen.
Caveman, yeah, I actually was not a caveman, I was a North Carolina. My father was a caveman. Anyway, and fuck the most awesome jeweler ever, so if he ever retires, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Well, I'm the most awesome jeweler in the county. So,
You are in the
Yeah.
county?
yeah,
You're the only one.
I'm the only.
You're my favorite.
Congratulations. You should have a plaque on the wall in your,
So a couple things before I start, I just updates. One is I just want to reflect back to the amended section of the minutes, to just remind you that if you as this body, as our wanted to act on Mr. Dalton's recommendation, you would need to do that by a vote to recommend that to the Urban Renewal Agency. Otherwise, it doesn't. go
Right.
anywhere. I just want to make sure you're.
I wanted to have it in the minutes so that we could have it to reflect on. Because I don't think we're ready right now to act on that.
Very good. I wanted to point that out. So they weren't expecting something to happen.
And if a committee member disagrees with me, please feel free, because I'm very open to suggestions and recommendations. The committee. Sorry for the interruption, Charlie. Go ahead.
No problem. So let's start with everybody's favorite topic. That is the 791 Main Street. And by the way, I can apologize. I'm kind of a cough today that's affecting my voice a little bit. But good news, and even better news, because as the staff reports indicate, our closing date was set for June 22nd. That's been modified to this Thursday, June 8th. So it's
Wow.
the expected close in a couple of days. So it's awesome. Otherwise, you can see some of the updates there. And I want to spend some time with you guys looking at the task list and welcoming comments you have or questions you have about this. It's still kind of a draft living document at this point, but hopefully it will help guidance as we go forward. I did overhear Marlene commenting before we started that it was an ambitious plan, and I would echo that. We could always modify and change it as we need to, but this will kind of hopefully keep us accountable, keep us fast. It may very well prove to be. So again, any questions you might have? Mr. Dalton asked what HBM stood for, which is a great question. So I do have some acronym in here, and I apologize for that. That's hazardous building materials, is what that stands for. See that acronym in yeah, 6, 7, and 8 there, and 10. RFQ down there, request for qualifications. CAC would be Citizens Advisory Committees. RFP, request for proposals. And then in the responsibility column, just some of the acronyms there. CN would be City Manager's Office. PWB Public Works. ENCD is second on the page. Acronyms.
Did you want to clarify who is actually buying the property?
So the way that the financial side of it is working, because obviously, Roger asked that question because you know that we don't have any money. So you're thinking, might be thinking, well, how are we purchasing property, right? So the city is essentially, the city of Dallas is the one purchasing the property, and the agency will pay back the city of Dallas on a 2-year deferment. So we won't be making payments until our next set of debt services are for the bill. I reflect on what the amortization schedule was. I think the annual payments for around $30,000 to $40,000. So that's what we'll be looking at a couple years down the road, if we still. But again, if we can keep to the 2-year time frame, we should be nearing the time that we would actually be selling the property right around the time you would have to be starting. So we may never have to make actual payments back to us. Does that answer?
Well, yeah, because the resolution we passed last night says that the owner is going to be the Dallas Development Commission Urban Renewal Agency. But that's, well, like,
The way I-
Charlie said, it's going to be a kind of a
I think
partnership.
the way it actually works on the pipe, if I recall, is it's the city of Dallas on behalf of or something.
You know,
Because depending on which way you look at it, the agency is and isn't an entity. I mean, it is on the one sense that it's a separate governmental body, but it doesn't have a separate like, tax entity.
right.
So. Anyway, so it's all the same for different hats. The city's one actually fronting purchase. We do have money in our budget. We've seen the budget report. There is money budgeted both this year and next for costs associated with this whole transition period to get the property ready to redevelop. And as I mentioned in the staff report, we've also received a grant to cover, hopefully, most of the early stage environmental costs that we may encounter these problems. That's although that is a reimbursable grants, we do have to run these costs. So again, my main purpose, today, we can go any direction you want, but I just wanted to make sure that I welcome any comments or what you have on the timeline or any questions about specific tasks, etc. Our intent is to sort of turn the property over immediately, essentially, to our facilities folks, because they're the ones that do the property stuff, and you can see there's a number of tasks they're going to do. One of the first tasks is actually going to be salvaging materials that are currently in the structure, which is going to, our facilities guy estimated it was $60,000 worth of usable stuff in there. And so, like, for example, the main counter in there is going to be moved to the aquatic center. And so you can see the old bank counter at the aquatic center is a much better counter than what the aquatic center has. And you may be aware that the city is building a new facility with public works where they're currently at. And so a lot of the fixtures and doors and interior amenities are going to be salvaged out of the bank building to be put to the public works. So we're kind of giving the city a gift, if you will, as well, because we're going to be the aquatic center and helping the public.
There going to be any accounting process to keep track of these things so that we can show proof of assets and expenses in? Because these would be assets to the property as it is now. So if we give it to something else, we gotta expense it out or indicate that it's been transferred to a different department and what the value of that particular item is. So we can keep track of our accounting to make sure that we're keeping things above board. So if somebody were to ask, well, did you just give that to somebody? Well, no, we didn't. We gave it, and we could say it was a gift, but it was this amount and so on and so forth. Because there could be some tax write-offs based on the fact that we give away something to.
It's all gonna go to the city, so.
Well, I'm giving you an example as an example.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative would have been, we would have just demoed the building with everything inside.
Yeah.
So, for the vault's done.
Well, I think we appreciate somebody actually taking the time to check out
Yeah, I was.
the assets of the property, and so that
That was
we
the
can
case.
distribute those
Yeah.
where they're needed.
Yeah, so it's almost like 60 grand.
Another thing too, the urban renewal district is a tax district 204. Just for your edification, just so that you know that we are a taxing district within the city of Dallas.
What tax? What did you say? What
Tax, we are, the urban renewal is a tax district. It's tax district 204
20?
through the county assessor's office.
I would imagine the vault probably has some value too. The vault itself,
Perhaps we find, use for it.
or if some other bank needs it or something, but.
So any questions or comments on the timeline?
Marlene?
Oh, I did not attend. I just wondered, are they salvaging the monkey bars out front or is that?
The monkey bars will probably be, cycled. No,
Okay,
that's my understanding.
I made the comment earlier today that they're gonna put it in the park for all of them,
Like structure.
okay.
and the city manager gave me a dirty look.
He did.
So is it possible
I can't believe he would do that.
to take those?
I don't know if we're gonna have a garage sale.
I don't know. It's bigger.
When you do demo work, you can recycle, you know, if it's recyclable metals.
Yeah.
And they typically do that. They separate the stuff out.
But you,
Useful.
yeah, a whole without being, really hard. Yeah. It's possible.
Okay. All
I mean, I don't know what it takes for a private person to go and, you know, all the insurance. I don't know if you have to get bonded in order to go on the property and remove some, I don't know.
Well, I think it's not, well, yeah, I know I remember.
Yeah.
We probably have the circles.
But I would be interested in maybe taking those. But purchasing the salvage monkey bars. Whole.
It might be worth putting something in the newspaper at that appropriate time, so that we have these items that were salvaged from the demolition of the Bank of America. If anybody's interested in purchasing these items, we could indicate what we feel the value is.
The items that the city did not already have use.
Pardon me?
You mean items that the city did not have use?
Exactly, yeah. So the city takes their items and then we could open it up to the public. It might bring in some more revenue.
Yeah, it's just a matter of whether our facility staff wants to manage that process. Capacity is there. We'll check it.
Anything else? Continue on.
Okay, so, to me, there's no questions or comments on the timeline, move on. One of the questions I do want to ask you though is, and again, we don't have to necessarily decide this tonight. Because we're still a ways out, but I wanted to make sure, maybe this is just an opportunity to get you really thinking about this, because now that this is getting real, like. Is the role that you want to play in the process. We talked about this before, kind of more esoterically, but now that it's getting real, you'll see that on item C4. And again, this is, you know, very draft. You know, Brian, I need to kind of go over this, make sure that you and I are on the same page as well. What I had scheduled in this draft is, you know, for us to have 2 early stage meetings with the architect. Before we start engaging for public, so think about if that's too much, too little, or want something different. But again, as it stands right now, that's scheduled for 5 to 7 weeks out.
I kind of have a question here. I don't know if anybody else have anything right now, because I'm gonna. Yeah, Marlene, go ahead.
So if I get this clear, you wanted some preliminary meetings. With architect or up to talk about it.
Yeah, so I mean, what I'm envisioning is, before we start engaging public this beyond this group. I think it would be helpful for this group to set kind of the general sideboards of, you know, this is the scope of what we think we want. So then when we start engaging public, it's not a totally clean slate. We sort of identify some of the general things that we do, you know, what's on the table, what's off the table. That'll make it easier for the public, because it can come pull this in rather than it's just being wide. That would be an approach that I would.
So I saw the architectural drawings that Jane Holmbeck had done for Monmouth. They're on Main Street across from the new city hall. And they went with a different architect and a different style, and it's still very nice. They've got the, you know, the apartments up above and things, but what she had, or what she had drawn was so Monmouth. She had kept so many elements of the original buildings and worked it into their, you know, it was, because that's her expertise, is the old historic replications. And when we said we were gonna buy the building and everything, I just really passionate about having it look very historic. With picking the elements out, and I don't know if she might even bring those or loan those to us or come talk about it or something in a meeting. Of how she designed it, and I'm not saying that we go with her, but I'm just saying that it's a good place to start with somebody who's a real expert in being able to render drawings that incorporate elements of the downtown era and genre and materials.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do, if perhaps for our next meeting, is to start the conversation just with us, just as part of the values, you know, again, sort of general things like what's on the table, top of the table. But we have sort of a general framework before we even engage in this, like, they can kind of help us refine that. So for example, a general framework would be, we want a multi-story mixed use. We want commercial underground floor with something else above that, some number of stories. That would be an example of, you know, that's the base starting point. Another example would be, we do or don't want to create some off-street parking as part of it. We do want to preserve access to the train, little things like that. We want to make sure we do want historically appropriate architecture. So just listing out sort of the general do's and don'ts, so we can kind of come to a consensus. This group is just a good start.
I'll go ahead, go with my questions now. Rita Grady has got a construction of a new building that she is, have you seen the architectural drawings yet? Okay, well, I'll let you guys look at those, but it's supposed to look rather historic. So
Yes.
she's done something with her contractors. And she had said that her contractors were interested in the property here too, in preserving a lot of the downtown feel and stuff like that. The Oregon Bank building was it a stone, kind of a stone facade? Yeah, so I was thinking, well, maybe that would be appropriate for that location because that's what was there before.
It's stone or tile, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but I'm sure Susie or somebody has some pictures of the building before it was demolished. And we can take a look at that and see if those photographs will help us in determining if that would be appropriate. But I think we need to have maybe a few more meetings rather than just once a month. And I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but it may be necessary in order to follow some of the timeline, because I think there's some areas here that I think we should be able to provide some assistance if given the opportunity.
Okay, we could look at scheduling a special meeting or two just to talk about this.
Yeah, and then that way we can bring in the contractor for regrading, just maybe discuss what his concept is and bring in, as you said, the independents, bring in that group and maybe spend some time talking about that. And that way we get an idea of what we're going to be looking for. What do we want to get out of this? I would like to see multi-story building, but I'm not sure how many stories or what kind of parking facilities and all that stuff. Contractor would be better to address those questions. Yeah, Marlene was first, then I'll go to Ken.
So, are there new codes that have to be like green, building green, or tax credits, or are there other considerations that need to be
don't think so.
incorporated?
Unless you were getting source of money that.
It's seismic. Okay. Is that something that we would want to do, as also think about
Well, I think again, those are the tax
materials?
credits that we
Yeah,
wanted to go that direction, wanted to achieve some kind of lead certification.
right.
That's a desire.
So that's a good question for a contractor. What could they do? Is it adequate to put solar panels on the roof to provide enough wattage and electricity to run the building? Can they store that power that comes in? I've heard you can with solar panels, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you what we did for the aquatic center. We went out to bid for contractors first, the contractors that specialized in aquatic centers. Then we picked the one from what we wanted. Then we started this conversation with the Parks and Rec Department about what do we want that to have. And then I went to the city council and came back a couple of times. But I think we have to get a contractor on board first. I don't think we can go get a contractor. I think we have to go through the bid process, I think.
Yeah.
And so one of those may be the ones that we get. Who knows? I don't know, but I think we have to get a contractor first before we can all get our ideas of what we think we
That's
want.
kind of what I was alluding to, is
Yeah.
that we need to find somebody that has some ideas on what we want, so that we can say, hey, we need a 7-story building, and part of it's this, and part of it's that, and part of it's this. Or we need a 5-story building. Or
I know the
3-story
contractor for the
building. So,
aquatic center said, no, you can't do that because this, or this.
Yeah.
I go, okay.
yeah,
So
that's exactly right.
Then we
yeah.
go to
So
plan
we
B.
need to spend some contractor time talking to some contractors. And then we get some ideas of the kind of questions that need to be asked through an RFP. And then we go out and maybe then get somebody that can do the job.
Cause I have envisioned what I'd like to see, but it may be
Yeah.
entirely different from what everybody else wants.
In fact, what I'd like to have everybody do is send Ben a list of things you would like to see in the building. And then let Ben gather that information and maybe create an array showing the different ideas that we have for that building. And then we can take that and start working with that as well, along with contractor to see what we get. Does that sound reasonable to you, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm a little confused because, I mean, when you talk about a contract, coming to talk to us.
Well,
You're talking
like
about engaging with.
Rita Grady's contractor who's building that building.
Sure.
Like you've got the plans now, so you can tell after you've had an opportunity to spend some time, you can say, well, this is maybe kind of a neat idea, and maybe he would be appropriate to come and spend some time discussing just the basics of contracting and stuff like that, to give us a better background and understanding of what part of the job is.
Busy and they're getting paid, so I don't know what's in it for them to come.
That's why
That's.
I would suggest talking to Rita, because she's the one who
Yeah.
approached me about it.
Well,
So,
I know, she's not gonna talk about this project.
Yeah.
Speaking of Rita, by the way, just to change the topic. She's gonna come talk to us in November about the project, so that's gonna be on the agenda.
but we may want a little bit before that.
Well, that agenda item with Rita was based on a previous request from the commission about wanting her to come to you and talk about her project. And that was the date that she picked. So this is a little bit of a separate thing where you want to use her contractor to help give you ideas about.
Yeah,
I'll go back to my comment. It wasn't the contractor we hired, it was an architect.
And that's what I was assuming.
Yeah, it was an architect.
okay, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's, I mean, a few things. So, I mean, having a contractor come talk to the public body, the selection process and having that person come, I understand they have a history, but that can get weird. And also, you know, on the contractor side, if the city's building the project like the aquatic center, we intend to retain it, then that makes sense. You engage the architect, the contractor, and go through that process. My fear is getting too far into the weeds. You know, it's one thing to set some programming elements, but if we get too drilled down, when we go out to solicit a developer, we could hamstring them, you know, where we have ideas, but maybe they know a little bit more about the construction, the costs and the market, you know, then we wouldn't get any response potentially. So that's just something to think about.
Well, I'm gonna depend on it. You do a lot for this, because you've been through it now with sales, so do you feel that maybe an architect might be a good place to start?
I think that Charlie has a good list, you know, we could start there and then. Yeah, my fear is just getting too far into the weeds, you know, I think brainstorming on things that downtown needs or that we'd like to see, and then have those things flushed out as we have more engagement, and then let them take it. I don't know, just my thought on it.
Well, you've been through it, you know, but it's.
Well, that's
about, so
typically
we
what-
would appreciate as much information as you give us to through this process, because.
Yeah, that's
This
usually
is our
the,
first time.
yeah, that's usually the approach, you know, there's the public, there's us as an advisory, you know. The agency ultimately has the decision, you know, they'll have some influence on it, but us providing some feedback, having a public open house. Engaging the architect and talking about what the community would like to see, and then there'll be the reality of, you know, once we start to engage. You know, hopefully a list of developers, then we'll flush more out, we can have more discussion on, you know, losing an item or gaining an item potentially.
Marlene, you had another question?
Well, I mean, that's really does open up the question of, at what point is it for sale to a developer? Is it, how much do we want to still have that developer have input on what he wants? And are we the ones who set the guidelines, like, here's this building for sale, but we're gonna have 3 businesses downtown and, you know, and one of them has to be a restaurant. I mean.
Yeah, I don't know if it gets that,
really
that's where you have to leave a little bit of freedom for them, because they'll try to build the space to a price point, you know, maybe certain sizes, flexibility.
So at what point do we offer this to a developer?
Well, yeah, if you look at, if you look at the timeline, that's way up towards the end, after we've sort of got a general sense of what our needs are for the state. And again, those are details, are a great question. Those are the details of how we negotiate this actual final transfer. We still have sort of.
Yeah.
And part of it's gonna be dictated on how much cost we have in the project, and part of that's gonna be dictated by the section. What we know.
Right.
There's more questions than answers to this point. My main focus for now, looking ahead until we get to that, it's just trying to get the community engaged in a vision of what we generally think we want on the site, what we don't. And you're right, Tori said it so well. Want to have some focus and some buy-in and support, but we don't want to limit ourselves so much that nobody's going to touch it. So there's a fine line.
There is.
I think what I heard Tori say was something kind of important. You could take a structure and build it and leave it basically as a shell. In other words, you don't have to say, well, this area is gonna be a restaurant, this area is gonna be a dress shop, this area is gonna be something else. You can just have the shell. And this happens in Salem, because I was watching that one building go up on the front street where they have apartments up above, and then they had retail down below. I can't remember the name of the building, but when it was built, it was just a shell down below with the supports and all that, but no offices or no rooms basically. And then as it got processed, then they started building the interior walls and things like that to accommodate whatever business was gonna go in. Is that kind of what you're leading to?
Yeah, I think just, I think from programming elements that we want to see, because that gets to the negotiation points like you're mentioning. You know, if the agency wants to see certain things downtown, like additional, housing units, ground level stores, you program that stuff into it, and that's basically not non-negotiable. But what you're mentioning is, so we're not involved in the old Nordstrom, the new development that's going in there. It's gone back and forth as far as, there's a constant assessment going on, especially Salem everywhere, where you assess occupancy downtown. So what they did is they prepared ground level apartments, but now they're starting to shift back to, maybe there's enough demand that will have ground level services, stores. So it's, having your connections and things so that you can go either way. I think it's a bit of a sticking point if we're setting, we want to see, and maybe it's a percentage, at least, 70% ground floor businesses, and then you could reserve 40-30% for housing or something like that on different sides
Well, right now.
on the ground floor. Okay.
We have to change our.
Yeah, I don't mean to contradict the code. I'm just saying, like, as far as flexibility. Yeah.
Basically, same thing I was kind of
Yeah.
thinking of too. But then, when it comes to the actual structure, the facade is what we're concerned about. We want the facade to blend in with the rest of
Yeah, for
the
downtown.
city and or take things from the past and kind of present it in the present, the future. So the outside appearance of the building is I think what we are most concerned about and should be concerned about, but the internals of the building should be left up to the developer.
Yeah, I think
When they
housing,
purchase the property, they can develop the interior any way that suits their needs and direction. Does that sound,
Well,
does that sound like what you're thinking too, or?
yes, but I mean, we still may want to set some general parameters.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. We could say we prefer to have this number of floors and have this floor be primarily retail, this floor be in apartments or offices and so on. But yeah, that we could do, but that doesn't sound like we're setting in concrete what has to be, what businesses will be in there.
Like Spray said, I mean, I think there's gonna be some items that are not negotiable, and some items that are.
Yeah,
So that's something that we have. So.
and
that's
even
part of the
that,
process.
there probably should be some flexibility too, because, like a mixed use where you have ground floor retail, and let's say, because they're local downtown businesses, it'd be nice to get residents actually downtown. So like in my mind, I think to myself, engage downtown, get some nightlife and get some like people living downtown, but that doesn't, I don't know if there's a market for it. Like you could build 3 floors of housing, multifamily housing downtown, but if people in Dallas, the residents prefer to be in single family dwellings that could sit vacant. So it's one of those things where it's like, it'd be nice to hear from people.
Okay. So the risk, that level of risk is going to be.
Yeah, right.
yeah, and that's why it would be nice to be able to take the structure and say, this is how big it's gonna be, this is how many square feet it's gonna be, and this is what the exterior is gonna look like, and this is what parking will be and stuff like that, and then kind of let the developer take care of everything else based upon the guidelines set forth by the advisory board. Because the advisory board is gonna make the final decision on our recommendations.
Well,
Recommendations, right?
Yeah, because we are recommending to the agency what we would like to see, and the agency will be the final say.
and there's different building standards for different things that you decide to do too, so you have to kind of.
This may be an opportunity to address those issues with the city on how we go with it, and that you can
Well, I mean,
help us out with if we run into those situations, I'm sure. Yes,
I know that downtown is looking at a historical district nomination that will be happening before this is complete. Is this site part of that, or would it be affected by that in terms of the exterior look?
I'll answer it first and Kevin can jump in if I screw it up, but yes, it is within the proposed district boundaries that they're currently on. Because it's infill, it doesn't really have, it'd be a non-contributing use no matter what. It's not contributing now, even as its current situation, so really, even though it's within the district, it doesn't really have any contributing value. We could certainly add to that by mimicking characteristics, but it's not a historic building now, nor will it be historic. The historic district is more about protecting the historic assets that are currently in the inventory. This is not one of them.
Okay.
Those are really interesting, so. Yeah, and I think that kind of building off of that, when we have the national district established, once that does happen, it's still up to the local level, what types of standards we place with that. So any types of the standards that the advisory body would want to talk about in terms of historic look, color, those types of things, could be things that can be applied to the district as a whole or to this building specifically, but the big element of the historic district is just protecting all of our historic buildings from demolition. And then also being able to provide those building owners with financial incentives from the federal government to be able to restore the historic buildings, but there won't be any impact in any way on how it affects any new construction that would happen on the empty.
Okay, thank you.
Trevor, kind of pigtail that, because that's why some of the things that we're looking at structures that were in the city before they got demolished, and see if we can't incorporate some of that look and feel to a new structure so that it will appear to be historical, but not technically.
Right, no, I like that idea.
All right, there's no other questions on that.
Take your time. We missed last month.
Yes.
By the way, I ended up having COVID during that time, so I'm glad we didn't have a meeting.
So moving right along, there's, again, it's a staff report, there's some updates on ARPA projects. We've got 5 of the 2022 projects are done. There's 1 in process and there's 2 that have yet to start. So we're kind of wrapping the 2022 projects up. So we're kind of in between 2 rounds right now. We've got the 2023 round, 3 enough to start. There's 9 projects in that round. So, you know, between the 2 years, that 17 projects, pretty cool. Just an update, the house on 645 Main is sold. I don't know yet who bought it or what they intend to do with it. So anybody know anything about that?
Which house is that?
It's the one right next to the old CDC.
Oh, okay.
The owner of 130 Southwest Court, which is right over here, it's a 1-story building to the west of the gym, has an adjacent parking lot. The owner of that is interested in selling that building from the adjacent parking lot. They approached the city to see if we were interested in it. We were not. So thinking something could happen.
What's it?
Yeah.
What's it listed?
It's not,
Or what did they want for it?
I don't.
Even when it was occupied, that was underused for a long time.
Yeah, the building's not in very good shape.
No.
And I looked up the assessed value and it's under $100,000. It's pretty marginal.
Do you think it'd be something that we should look at?
Well, the city manager already said we're not looking at it, so.
Well, you're talking as the city of Dallas, right? When you say that, you're talking as the city of Dallas is not looking at it.
Both entities.
Well, I'm talking about urban renewal. Would urban renewal be wise of maybe looking at it?
Well, the urban renewal agency has no money, so.
Well, gee whiz, we could borrow more from the city,
Well,
right?
it's like, where you got this.
They got deep
You got the
pockets.
city manager saying, "I'm not interested." So if you want to consider, you have.
Yeah, it seems like I heard no payment for 24 months.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, I thought originally that it might be a good investment. The challenge though is that parcel shares that parking lot with the other property, it just gets that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so really, I think the best solution might be for that property with that. Because they know everything and we can make it a bit more sense, but that's just my opinion. Dreamy's Creamery down here on Southwest Court is opening, what is the grand opening? Thursday. So that's happening. So I know people have been talking about wanting an ice cream shop in downtown Dallas and hey, we're getting one. So that's
Excellent.
exciting. Let's see, you haven't noticed the sidewalk and tree replacement right on the other side of Court Street. It's complete. The building renovations are pretty much done. I just walked by there today, some photos of that. There's 2 new tents going in there. That's where B2 most recently was over there. I followed up with Pacific Power based on some requests that came with last meeting or several meetings ago, and basically, until we're actually really ready to pursue something, this is a lot more involved than you would think.
So $1 billion is a good estimate.
So sure, why not? There's there's a lot of staff time involved.
Yeah.
On both sides of the house to really get a legitimate cost estimate. We're just not ready.
I was
And
looking
that's
for more of a
basically the way it
ballpark
was the last
figure.
time that was looked at. when-
Yeah, we have to be pretty serious about it. before we reach that. And I don't see that happening, for some time again, because we're not. Historic district, I think there's an update there, so we're moving ahead on that. There was an open house scheduled in May of that. There'll be another one in September. I would encourage you to participate in that, if you have the opportunity to do that. We're looking at basically getting the district in place. The Downtown Association has recently got a $200,000 grant for Main Building on Main Street. That's exciting. Note there about the cleanup happening in downtown with prior to Crazy Days. EDA would love to have URDAC support for the cleanup, attendance, and certifications. And there is a new, if you're ever asked or curious about the recent investments that Urban Renewal has made in downtown, Tyler put together a great map. So that you can find that, it has all the locations, the amounts, general info about the projects. So those are the ARPA grants and previous grants and minor programs. Yes, grants on too.
I think it all dates back to 2021.
So everything from 2021 on, it's mapped out. It's pretty impressive to see how many different projects that we invested in the last 2 years. I'll go ahead.
Anybody have any questions, Charlie?
Maybe I missed it in the newspaper, maybe it's been talked about, did someone hit, the banner post, did it get knocked down or something happened there?
Many months ago, 6 months ago. This is a victim now of the supply chain. Yes, because there's this big delay in getting the proper support or something. So,
Same company is gonna be replacing it that did it originally.
I don't know. I mean, it's all being handled.
'Cause that was a pretty local company, so might check the records and see where we got that from, but
Well, I'm sure the right folks are on.
yeah, Public Works would have that information for it. But
So it'll get replaced at some point.
Yeah, I was curious, I saw it with cones around, and I'm like, oh,
I
what
saw
happened
that
there?
the other day, I said, "And that happened here."
When do we get the clock back? When does our clock start? When we get our town clock? It's,
To the county.
Yeah,
so the county,
I mean, it's a county building.
That's
so
true.
Could be.
I'll go to there and see.
They haven't told me, so.
You happen to know, Ken, anything about it?
I was working.
Since we turned time to daylight savings time,
Oh, really?
that very next day, it hasn't worked since it.
Is it not working at all?
No, it don't.
Okay.
Trust me, there are a lot of clocks
every
and
day.
watches that don't.
Every minute it's the same time.
Correct, twice a day.
well,
Yes. that's
normally
right.
that would be the case,
It's correct twice a day.
unless we have an eclipse, and that would change things.
I know a guy who's good at working with clocks.
Hey, that's right, the master clockmaker
I
from,
don't, no,
from
not
Polk
clock,
County.
not clockmaker, but I don't know
Clock
nothing
repair.
about giant electric clocking units.
I think it's computerized.
I don't know, I
Yeah.
didn't know
When I
it
took
was
it to tour
not a
up there.
mechanical clock.
Probably they got a programming error.
Yeah, I think that's all been placed modern.
Yeah, it is. If you take your tour up there, you see it.
I'll
I look at that thing 100 times a day. I mean, I'm downtown and it's.
Just
always
look
been
at it
my
twice a
pleasure
day.
to-
You only want to look at it twice a day.
Yeah. It's just such a beautiful thing to not have it work.
I agree with that. Remiss that I do not work here, apparently I never looked at the clock.
Anybody else have questions of Charlie?
No, but I just want to really hear about my grant that I got. I really appreciate the DDA. Thank you, Brian and the board. And Tyler, you wrote the grant. You did a fabulous job and I really think kudos. The city ought to really appreciate you in many ways, but your grant writing, you seem to just knock it out of the ballpark every time. So I very appreciate. Without these two grants, there's absolutely, it doesn't make sense on return on investment. And the seismic is so expensive to do. So having gotten these two grants makes the project make sense financially, so that when I do get it finished, I can lease the space and it'll be affordable for people. So, and that's important to have people in there and stay in there and not have to leave all the time because I've got too high a lease. So anyway, I'm very appreciative of your work.
Well said, yeah, Dallas has made good use of that grant program, so we've gotten 2 different grants going to your building, the Carnegie most recently as well, and so those have all been great projects, and just like you said, Ronnie, that's the purpose of these grant programs, they don't pencil out on the private side, which is why public money is so important, otherwise this building is still there
Yes,
in their current condition, and it's continuing to deteriorate and not be used.
yeah.
So it's good that we've been using those grants a lot.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate the time. The next thing is chair comments. Well, by golly, I have a few. This project that we are facing is really important to the city of Dallas. But it's also important to the urban renewal district because it's going to bring in more revenue to the agency. And if we do the proper job with this, spend the appropriate amount of time to come up with a good recommendation to the agency, we can see some value come back into the agency. And then we can have some more revenue available for facade grants and other types of grants for existing historic buildings downtown, repairs and or streetscape improvements, which we'd like to see on Washington Street, as Brian pointed out at our last meeting. And if we can increase the amount that we get coming in, we can do more projects. So I'm really looking forward, and I appreciate all the effort that Charlie and the city has put into purchasing this property for the agency. And I think we all really will be looking forward to the results of it too. So it's, would like to spend some time again collecting information, send it to Ben. Ken, if you could, as the chair for the agency, ask that the agency members provide some feedback to Ben about what they would like to see too. That would be helpful as we put things together. That's all I have. Now we go on to member comments. You already done your member comment, which is really nice. Congratulations. I'm glad to see that
Yes, thank
you're
you very
doing that.
much.
Moving along, I guess. It's kind of a stall and then a movement and a stall and a movement. Hopefully the movements are getting bigger now. Any other member comments?
Well, mine is just on the same subject, but during the project. Is that there's gonna be a long period of time that I'm sure there won't be any parking adjacent to that building. On Mill Street, and that parking is used pretty much fully every day. We are going to be really short on parking downtown when that project begins. And we need to think of some place, some suggested place where people can park at, which will be farther away, but that will be usable.
Good point, Charlie. You got that in your took a note, I don't know, that's a great idea,
And I'm not quite that far. I appreciate that. One.
yeah, construction workers coming and working, they need someplace to get to, and not be that far.
I would assume that if there's demolition, that the entire area around that will be cordoned off to where there's gonna be no access to it for parking or anything.
The good thing is that the demolition project should be take relatively short amount. It's the construction, obviously. It's gonna take us.
This would be a good way that we're gonna get the north side of Mill Street sidewalk improvements done too. We haven't done that yet. We were kind of wanting this project to allow for that to happen, which is great.
Just that section.
So we get half, at least half of Mill Street in that block taken care of. Anything else? Other business? The only other business I have is the 4th of July is the first Tuesday. Any thoughts about whether we should have a meeting? I think we're at a point now where it would probably be necessary to have a meeting in July, because we're gonna be moving pretty quick, and I think Charlie's gonna keep us on our toes to get through this process, and the more time we can spend together as a team, we'll be able to get it going a lot quicker. Ben, what's the date that we can have the meeting and? Okay, so the meeting date for July then would be listed on the agenda as July 5th. That would be a Wednesday. Okay. Same place, same time. Any other business? I took care of that one too. Meeting's adjourned.
That's use the gathering.
We got about an hour.
Yeah.
Charlie, thanks.